everybody. Happy Christmas Eve on Patreon and Happy New Year's Eve on YouTube. And I was in a really great mood this morning. I felt really great. I woke up, was like, got some coffee, had some breakfast, was like, yeah. So I thought, what better way to celebrate my good mood than watch this episode of 86? It's Romania Black. Last week I was in a very bad mood. Last week I was not in a great place. And so watching episode 8 of 86 was a very bad idea. I thought I was ready. I was like, no. And I also was kind of pressed for time, and I had been holding off on that episode till it was literally to the point where I had to watch it to get it out on time. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to wait for the comments. I'm not going to do that. If I feel like I'm in the mood, I'm just going to dive into 86 while I'm in a good mood. Because chances are it's going to ruin it, so I might as well. And then, you know how I feel about it? I'm like, okay, well, if my mood gets ruined by a very depressing, cynical episode of 86, then I'll just follow it up with something better. Like Blue Lock or Trigun or Heaven and Vigil's Blessing. I'll find something to watch to make it feel better. But yeah, I don't have any comments to talk about because the mods were all like, you can't read anything. They're all spoilery. And I was like, awesome. So I don't have anything to comment about right now. Hopefully that changes in the future if people get the drift. But last episode was unbearably sad. Like, it's probably the saddest, and just not sad because of a specific, I'm watching other shows where character deaths have had more impact, but it's just so dour. This series is so dour and sad. And I was thinking about why it bothers me more than other series, and I think I figured out why. And that's because this is an adaptation of a novel and not a manga or visual medium. And what I mean by that is when you have something adapted from a graphic novel or a manga or something that is a visual medium, there is, for the animators, a lot more to play with because the mangaka or the creator of that visual medium will have panels and you can see the characters interacting in the panels visually, but there's also like little tiny things going on in the background and little things happening where your characters can kind of get more depth and more layers to them because you find and pick out little things as you watch and you rewatch. And that's not to say that's not the case with this series. This series definitely has rewatchability. But what's harder, and it's kind of the same thing with Violet Evergarden, which was also a novel series that was adapted into an anime. But with this, you just kind of have to go off of what you see is what you get. And I think my only complaint at this point in the series is we don't really have as much time spent with each of the characters to really get to know them and form a bond with them. Like in other series I'm watching, you have so much downtime with the characters and them getting to all know each other and stuff. And we see that in this series. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the other series I'm watching are doing it better. So that's my only big complaint about this series is that we don't really have time spent. We're told a lot more than we're shown. And that's not to talk about the symbolism because there's a lot of symbolism that's shown and not told. But the character work, and I'm a very character-driven person when I read things, is that this series is much more about theme and symbolism than to me it is with character work. Just saying. We know about Theo, we know about Raiden, we know about Lena, we know about Sheen, but a lot of their characters are not shown to us. They're told to us, or we just see the bare surface of it. We haven't really cracked open the layers with their characters. And other series I'm watching do a lot better work with the characters. Now, the theme and symbolism, this show's doing great with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't talk for an hour about it. But I feel like the character work is a little bit lacking with this series compared to others I'm watching right now. But I'm hoping that changes. But I don't know, because they're probably all going to die in this episode. And then what do we do? So I don't know. And I know a lot of people in the comments will probably argue that the character work's amazing in this series. Please don't spoil it to me. Don't reveal things that haven't happened yet. But I'm just saying, I have a lot of series I'm watching on my channel right now. This one is a little underwhelming in that regard compared to other series I'm watching. Now, fully prepared to be shocked, fully prepared for that to turn around, but it's a little bit of an uphill battle for me as I'm really character driven. And a lot of these characters, I'm just like, stop. So that's just where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at. The symbolism and theme, though, on point, like doing a really good job. The symbolism, we can talk all day long about the different little elements that they show, not tell, but the character work just needs to get to that level too, and it's not there yet. But that's part of the show, because there's a disconnect where they can't quite interact because there's a barrier there. So I understand that's part of it. I get it. Those are just my feelings. And this episode's kind of like, well, they're all going to die, and I'm like, well, we made it 8 episodes. I don't know. And again, that kind of relates to the characters dying off screen. When we don't see their death, the impact, it's more of a shock value thing. And it's just like, oh, And again, I realize that maybe the light novels expand upon that. Maybe they're cutting things down. I don't know. I don't want to know right now. It's just from an anime perspective, it feels like there's just stuff missing. And I'm like, okay, I'll work with it. But yeah, that's where we're at. So I want to give a very quick shout out over to Patreon, to the philanthropy tier. I'm very, very grateful. It's the holiday season. I know it's hard for a lot of people to give support outside of getting gifts and things like that. And so the fact that those of you on Patreon support me and help, throw some money my way during the holiday season is incredible. And I'm very grateful for it. So thank you all so much. But the philanthropy tier, they get a special shout out because they're going above and beyond just giving some extra money, because they're kind people and they humble me very much. So I want to give a shout out over to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Anna, to Be Happy, one of our moderators, to Dana, to Destiny Marie, to Eric, to Edgar, to Kiri, to Matthew Palfiniere, to Nameless Monster, to Shimoyama, to Sunspots, to Trails, to Translucent Men, to Tyrone, as well as Lyndon, to Jimmy Lujan, as well as Aku Q, as well as Loishiji and Danger Zone. I really appreciate all of your support from everyone over on Patreon. Thank you so, so much. And thank you to all the YouTube subscribers as well. All of my love this holiday season. But yeah, I'm like, wow, I'm in a great mood. I might as well watch it now and then go have lunch after this. So that's where we're at, but maybe it'll be fine. Maybe it'll be sunshine and rainbows. Maybe I keep thinking there's going to be a twist. There's going to be a twist, but I don't know what that twist is going to be. I'm holding out hope. I'm like, please. I went on a big rant on Discord the other night, and I was like, Be Happy, I'm so sad. Blore, I'm so sad. And the moderators were like, we know. They're really good about not spoiling, just being like, sorry about that. Like, that's what I need, so thank you. Just need somebody to go, there. But yeah, I'm gonna hope my dogs are good. Go lay down. And we're gonna get started here on episode 9 of 86. Thanks to Mevelyn for giving me the fan translations as always. But we're gonna start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's see what fresh fun this episode gives us. I'm going to be honest with y'all. Episodes like this are so frustrating. Because last week, it's like everything was doom and gloom, despair, nothing's going to go well, nothing's great, nothing's right. And then this episode is kind of like, well, why didn't you have faith in our crew? And I'm like, this episode was very weird. I mean, I don't... The timing and pacing of this series is very bizarre to me, and it's refreshing in a way because it's not really following convention, and I should appreciate it. I shouldn't bitch. I should appreciate it for what it does, but it is very weird, and I feel like I would be lying to you all if I said I wasn't kind of weirded out by it. Some things this episode hit really, really well, and I like it a lot. Some things this episode I'm kind of like, oh, so that's it. Okay. And that's all we get. And I'm like, all right. But I mean, overall, I didn't even think about the idea of there being an outside 86 unknown area where the crew was. So, okay. So this brings up some things. I'm going to just put it up here about our 86 theories to come over there, because when last episode I was like, okay, well, is there a possibility they're packing this 1 month supply, and on paper it looks as if it's just the I'm gonna put sand magnolia. It's just the sand magnolia government covering their bases, right? That's what it seems like. It seems on the surface like they're just like, oh yeah, well we gave them a 1 month supply, sent them off to go fight the Legion. But this is where things get really bizarre, and I'm kind of like, I can't decide on what I think is the correct thing to happen, because I'm like, there's something else going on, right? Obviously. I can't decide if the Alban government is just dumb, if they're just dumb, or if there is an ulterior motive, if there's something ulterior about it. I don't understand, because the thing about it is, narratively, if we break it down, you have the 1 month supply, and if it seems like their goal, like the goal of the 86 from the get-go, could be to get past the border of 86. I think that they're going to Geod, which is where we've had confirmation that Sheen's from and Ray was from, and that I think that there is an underground, or maybe not underground, I'm going to put it in quotation marks, an underground resistance that is there, built by the 86, that have potentially gotten away. Or if there are no 86 that have gotten away, they're the first group to go into the unknown and see if there's anything left of Geod, or it's or humans there, right? Because I mean, it's kind of complicated, because what we think that we know is that Geod, who created the Legion eventually, the AI got so powerful, the AI overran the people and destroyed Geod, and now it's just operating on this circuit trying to destroy the Republic. That's what we think, and that could still very well be the case. I'm wondering if there were some humans that got away from Geod, or where it was targeted, and they're all hiding underground now, and maybe some of the 86 that have managed to make it past the barrier where the government can't track them anymore made it to this secret underground base. And that's kind of like, it's like sort of an underground railroad situation where you want to get to there and find a way to get freedom outside of the Republic by going through. And the thing about it is, you can't make it through unless you get past the Legion. And that's kind of, I'm trying to draw it up here. You have, Geod and this unknown region that we don't know about, that's on the outside here. Here is the Legion, the recon base that you got to get past. And then here's the 86 Squadron 1. So usually this area right here is where people get hung up at, and they don't make it past to get to the unknown. They all die there, right? That's typically what ends up happening. The irony is, Lena helped them to get past it, and she's, Lena was doing it under the guise of, oh, hey guys, I saved you, now what's gonna happen? But they're like, okay, bye. She's like, wait, no, don't leave without me. We'll talk about it, but I feel like they have the 1 month supply, and they've just gone to this underground base, and my theory is that they are going to try to destroy the Republic. Either destroy the Republic. That's going to be the interesting thing, because if they go to this underground base where the other people from other countries are, and there's a mission to destroy the Republic, is it going to come back on them? I'm very curious to know what's going to end up happening, because on the one hand, what we've seen of the Republic so far is pretty disgusting, and it's pretty horrible, and they're fascist, and it's just, they don't have any regard towards the 86, and they're totally complicit in this genocide of a people. And so destroying the Republic, like last episode, I was like, just let it burn. Like last episode, I was so emotional and caught up in the moment. I was like, oh, just let it burn. But now there is this dichotomy of, we've had over and over again the characters of 86 being like, we're not going to become the pigs that are making us fight this war. Well, if they decide to fight the Republic and cause a genocide, isn't that doing the exact same thing they were doing to them? So what do we do with that, right? So I don't know. So the question is, are they going to destroy the Republic, or is their goal to wipe out the Legion from the other side and then negotiate? I don't know. And then negotiate, or be like, hey, we saved your asses, now you're in our debts. I don't know. It would be very weird thematically for them, because they've said that multiple times. Like Kaya said it, they said it in the last episode over and over again, that they weren't going to become like the Republic. And if they end up going to war against the Republic, it's like, well, aren't you, even if they deserve it, because it's pretty bad over there, isn't that doing the same thing they're doing? And is that breaking the cycle? Again, we talk about this a lot in Attack on Titan, but it seems like a similar theme. So I'm going to be very curious to see if that's even the case. And maybe there's not an underground base. Maybe there's nothing of the sort. The other theory that I had, which it doesn't make any sense, but if they're giving them this 1 month supply, is the government really dumb and just doesn't think that they're going to make it past? And do they know about the base? I don't think they know, because it's out of the range of their signal. Now, if they don't know about the base, the big question that Lena is going to have to find out is, have any other 86 quote unquote lost signal in the past? Because so far, all she read in the reports were that the other squadrons that were sent to the recon base were wiped out, and they didn't come back to district. They didn't come back to the squadron. And I think when the mechanic was like, here's all your supplies, you got your stuff ready to go, it's the last time I'm ever going to see you, because he knew they were either going to die at the Legion recon base, or they were going to make it to the other side and never be seen again. And so he was fully prepared for either scenario. So I'm going to be curious if Lena now, after realizing that they're gone and she's never going to see them again, potentially, if she's going to try to seek out and see if others had signals lost as well that could potentially be on the other side and could be in an underground base situation. It really sucks though, because they just, they left Lena, and of course they had to leave Lena, but it sucks because she did all of this for them, and they're like, thanks, Major, bye. We're going into the unknown, see you later. I feel like Sheen has an idea. I feel like Sheen planned this out from the beginning. And Sheen had this plan to get to the other side and get to the underground base. Or maybe he heard about the underground base from other 86 and knew about it, and we haven't found out yet. Because this series keeps things very close to the vest until it decides to reveal it. And then you're like, what? And I think that sometimes it can be to their detriment. Because, like I said before this reaction started, you don't get a lot of intimate character development. You don't get a lot of in-depth character development in this series yet, because they're keeping things so close to the vest. They're not wanting to play all their cards, so because of that, you don't get this in-depth look with a lot of characters. Symbolism, themes, visual symbolism, it's there this episode, for sure. But the character work is still kind of surface level. And I feel like it's just because they're playing their cards so close to the vest. They can't show all of this range because it would give away the secrets that they've yet to reveal. And I'm fine with that in most cases. I can be patient, but I feel like Sheen planned all of this out. He's like, okay, before I leave to go to the unknown, before I go past the 86th district and the Republican border, before I do that, I have to battle my brother. And I have to kill him off so that his spirit can rest. I can have peace of mind knowing my brother's mind isn't being used against him. And I can have peace of mind knowing that he's at peace and is dead, for sure. Gone. I can't move on and go to the unknown until this happens. I'm like, okay. We'll talk about this episode. Did it feel rushed? Yeah, a bit. I mean, this is episode 9. We're not even halfway through the series. And we're still we're not even halfway through the series. And we already in 9 episodes rounded out the entire arc of Sheen with his brother. I thought that was going to be the majority of the first half. I thought it was going to go on at least. Whenever we first found out about Ray and Sheen and their mysterious dynamic, which isn't mysterious at this point, I thought that it was at least going to last till episode 12. I'm like, that'll be a midway point thing, if not beyond. No, it's episode 9 and we're already done with Sheen. Ray's already dead. And I'm like, what what do we do now? Which is good in a way, but let's talk about it. Let's just talk about it. So the idea that the Legion using the voices of all the dead, and like they're just glimmering in the background looking like this ominous force. Again, if Lena had not come in to fight them all, they would have died. They would have died. And were they banking on her showing up? I don't think so. But I just like Raiden and all them just looking ahead, being like, we're used to this by now. We're used to hearing the voices. This looks very dangerous. We're dealing with every Legion in the area. Ugh. And they're just like, well. And that's when we hear Rey and Sheen's face, like Sheen being like, I found him. I don't like seeing Sheen look maniacally angry about it, you know? Of seeing him, and he's like, that voice, he's like, keep going. If you can hide in the Force, they won't be able to find you easily. And he's like, I've got to battle against him. I guess that I understand why Sheen is like that with Rey. There's this idea that Sheen, he wanted to settle things. He wanted to settle with his brother, right? And he believes that his brother hates him, blames him, and that it's his sin for causing things to happen. What is frustrating is that during the battle, we as the audience know that that was not Rey's thoughts. Rey was just projecting his anger and his powerlessness onto his little brother. And his little brother has grown up thinking that it's all his fault and having this guilt and frustration. And then at the end, he finally hears at the end his brother's forgiveness. And that it was just, the thing about Legion, we'll talk about the scene with Lena because it was really well done. I liked that a lot. Was with Lena and Rey. The thing about it is, it was just his like mental defense to quote unquote protect Sheen was just manipulated by the Legion robot to be like, oh, well, by protect, that means you need to free him from his human shell and make him part of Legion, and then he'll be with you forever and be protected forever. And it's just like this weird situation where the machine and the algorithm is like, has manipulated the memories and mind of this brain to think something that's not true. And it's very frustrating. And you're like, no, that's not the case at all. Don't do that. And Lena has to finally have this weird mortar soul-to-soul conversation with Rey to like let it, but Lena's also communicating through the Pararaid, which she's using the same powers through the Pararaid that Rey and Sheen are able to do naturally with one another because of their genetics. So it's really interesting. But yeah, I don't mind Sheen getting all feral about going after his brother because it makes sense. I just wish we had more buildup with it to really get to understand his character more. Because it's like when he goes from being so stoic and showing practically no emotion for 7 episodes to suddenly being feral, seeing his brother. I just wish we had more buildup of that and more time with Sheen to get more of it so that it had more of an impact, I guess. I guess that's my one complaint about that. But it's fine. It is what it is. And Sheen is a character that doesn't get close to the best. I really like Raiden's expression throughout all this. Raiden had a lot of really good visual, emotional reactions. Like, he knows what Sheen is thinking, and he knows that Sheen is getting a little reckless, and he's like, hey, don't be doing this. Like, involve us too. We've made it this far. We're not going to let you do this alone. But Sheen is bound and determined, and Rey is bound and determined that that's just going to be the case. Like when he's like, ask me to fight with you, don't push me away. Like I feel Raiden and Lena both, as well as Karina and the others, kind of are all like, Sheen, you don't have to do this alone. But yeah, all these like bombs, everything going off, and it's all terrifying, and just Sheen being like, I found you, brother. Like he's like, I can't go on until I get to this point. Until I move on, it's not gonna work. Okay. Anyway, and then seeing the flower, the spider lily fields with everyone on it that died for them to get there so that they could move on. And that's like the getting to the unknown. just Ray as the Legion robot is terrifying, right? Absolutely terrifying. I think it's important to know that the Legion don't normally fight like this, but it's just like the idea that the robot can get some kind of human touch, like Ray influencing the way that the Legion Shepherd works, is it's creepy. It's very creepy that their minds can be manipulated to do certain things. And then, yeah, just Sheen and Ray fighting one another. Now, does it seem a little bit unrealistic that Sheen didn't die when Ray's robot is capable of doing all these crazy things? Is it a little bit of anime logic when we've established these juggernauts as pieces of junk? A little. A little. Am I glad Sheen didn't die in this episode? Oh, absolutely. I didn't want any of them to die. It's just, I guess that's where a little bit of the anime logic is, because I'm like, there's this giant force that seems nigh unstoppable, and even before Lena shows up with the bombs and everything to distract them, the fact that none of them died when, like, Kaya got pecked off from, like, a random Legion 6 episodes ago, we were like, wait, what? And she just got pew and just knocked off by just a random shell. But these Legion that are on the recon field have Stormtrooper aim. I'm like, oh, that seems a little plot convenient. A little bit. I'm just surprised. I'm glad no one died, and I feel bad for feeling, like, upset. But it's just like, you hit us with all of these random deaths, and we're just, like, feeling sad about it. And then the characters you built up last episode that was, like, doom and gloom, it feels like emotional torture. It feels like it's intentionally torturing us with this doom and gloom and despair, and then being like, oh, no, it's totally fine. I'm like, make up your mind, show! I don't know how to feel. It just, it does feel like emotional manipulation where they make you feel so doom and gloom. And then they're like, oh no, the 5 of them are fine. And you're like Daya and them couldn't make it past like one group of 5 Legion that show up, but there's a million here and they all made it out scot-free. I guess Lena was a great help. You know what I mean? It is a little bit like, come on, show. But yeah, it just felt a little too clean how it ended. Maybe that's the way to put it. But I mean, I don't dislike it, but I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be 100% with y'all as I'm reviewing this series. If I notice anything that I'm like, what? It felt very clean. And then like when Theo gets back to get reloaded, there's all these shots being fired at him. None of them hit him. And I'm like, there's a million there, but what? And then that's when the sky opens up and Lena says, I'm borrowing your left eye. And he sees her. So he sees her for a hot second. He sees what she looks like. And that's when all of the shells, the mortars come in. So I'm going to be curious if Raiden, who has seen Lena now, is going to tell I wish Theo had saw her, because Theo could draw what she looks like and show Sheen and them what she looks like, but Raiden has seen what she looks like, and I think that's important. I think it's going to come back later that Raiden has visually seen what Lena looks like. And if Lena ends up finding them someday, or going after them on a quest, or they end up somehow meeting, he'll see her and be like, that's Lena. And it's like, oh. And then she manages to wipe out a bunch of the Legion. And then I like that Raiden's like, is that you? Like, why are you listening? She's like, yes. And he's like, he gets mad at her because he's like, are you a moron? Trying to share visual perception will lead, he's like, I just confirmed the impact. He's like, oh, I'm sure sharing it's distracting. She's like, I'm sorry, so I'll close my left eye. He's like, don't do it because it causes blindness. I like that in that second, well, on one hand is Raiden worried about that it's going to cause him blindness? But then he says, don't you know handlers don't do that because it causes blindness. He was worried about her. He didn't want her to go blind. And I'm like, well, that's sweet. But she's like, she counters him and says, he's like, you didn't get permission. She's like, so what? So what, I didn't get permission. The blindness doesn't set in immediately. And breaking orders and using the guns without permission won't kill me. I like that she's like, you know what? Screw it. I'm privileged. Fine, I'm going to accept my privilege. You know what? The blindness isn't going to set in till later. YOLO, I'm fine with it. I want to make sure y'all live. You guys are putting your life on the line to save us, so why can't I put my life on the line to save you? So what if I didn't get permission? What are they going to do? Fire me? She's like, the Republic doesn't play by sane rules, so I'm not either. I'm like, go get him, girl. I freaking love Lena. This series doing this stupid emotional manipulation. They make her be completely silent last episode, have no agency, no voice, and in this episode she gets all of the agency, all of the voice, and I'm happy for her. I love it, but I'm just like, show, quit teeter-tottering back on the metronome. Like, just, you're gonna kill me. And she's like, I'm not doing it for you. And I love it, because I love Raiden's like, she's being exactly like them. She's like, I'm doing it to save the Republic. You handle it on your own. And so then meanwhile, Sheen is fighting Rey, and it's just the two of them. And Sheen gets knocked out. And all these hands showing up, it felt like, all these liquid hands, it felt like Jujutsu Kaisen all of a sudden. It just seems like all those liquid hands, they should have gotten to Sheen, if that were the case, a lot faster, but I'm not going to complain. When Karina saw the enemy withdrawing, I thought she was going to think that that was a sign they were withdrawing because Rey had Sheen, and that's what he wanted, so the others could go back, whatever. And they all started to kind of celebrate, but then they noticed that Sheen is in a situation where he could potentially be taken by Rey. And what I like about this scene is that Lena's like, look, I've got a plan. I've got an idea of what to do, but I need you all to help me. And the moment that Karina thinks about turning the parade off, which is very much in line with what we know about her character, because she doesn't like Lena, and she thinks Lena doesn't care about Sheen. But Lena's like, look, Karina, I don't want him to die either. We got to work with this. And the funny thing about it, the character development I do like, Karina's probably gotten the most out of the four of them that we've seen. Like, Anju's gotten a little bit, Theo's gotten a little bit, Raiden has probably the least of the four. But Karina has the most. And we know that Karina, it's sort of, in the most ironic of ways, the fact that she has this image in her head that Lena and Sheen are trying to be in a relationship together or like each other, that actually lends her to believe Lena when Lena says that she doesn't want him to die. So in the most ironic of ways, her jealousy at them having a possible relationship is what ends up letting her trust Lena to let her save Sheen. And I'm like, that's really cool. I like that a lot. That's really fun. And then, yeah, she's like, I don't want him to die either. And then the hands make a lot of sense too, where he was like, it's still so fragile. I may have hurt you, but I'll apologize for that and everything else later. I want you to come back to me and we can be together again, and I'll read you a book again. But first, I'll get rid of your human body. I love the idea that it's always the hands reaching up. Like, again, the visual symbolism in the show is really, really good. Like, the idea of the hands reaching out, and it's Rey wanting to grab Sheen, like what his mind is telling him, his memory is telling him, I want to protect you, I want to read you the book. It's like his memory's been on a loop this entire time, but the Legion part of his brain that's been taken over is like, but you have to kill him first and strip him of his human body. But it's almost like the Legion part of his system is trying to rationalize it as, oh, you're not killing Sheen because he doesn't want to do that. You're releasing him from his human body so that you can be together forever. And you're like getting out of the corporal shell, right? And that's when I like the idea of Rey's head, like his severed head, just whizzing around looking at others. And he's like, you're going to let Sheen die. Like, I like that his rationale for destroying all of them is that they're going to let Sheen get hurt, right? And he's like, I'll protect him. And then Lena, I love the cracking of the chocolate and Lena as a kid being beside him. Being like, you want to protect him, but you're going to kill him again. And then it shows him with the chocolate bar and the blood. And he looks down at it and we see Sheen there next to the equipment as a child. The visual storytelling in this part is really, really good. I love this. This is all just like the metaphors, them as kids, the chocolate bar. We get into Rey's head to see like his brain and what it wants to do. And Lena's like saying, but... And I love the visual of him on his knees in front of her. And her just slapping him. And then the dud smacking him too. I love it. And I also love when his thing turns back on, that we see all of them like trying to get a hold of him, being like, are you okay? Stop messing around. Get up. Like they all are so caring about him. It's really good. And then he imagines himself getting choked by his brother and saying he's still getting blamed. But that's when Lena pushes through and she's like, that's why you're going to give him his rest, right? You're going to help him like rest in peace. That's why you're doing this. And of course it gives him like the will to move on and do all that. And then the voice says Sheen. And he manages to like fire into the center of him and saying goodbye, brother. It's such a good moment. But it's like, and that's when Ray realizes in his mind, he's like, you don't need me to hold your hand. You don't need me to protect you anymore. And I like that transition of Sheen, like from the kid to the adult. And then he reaches him and says, I'm sorry. The expression that Sheen has when he realizes that Ray was sorry and forgave him, and his just expression of, oh my God, he hurt him right before he died and the brain was gone, was really well done. That whole sequence was really well done. It just feels like it comes so quickly. And the thing about it is I can't complain about it because the visuals of the eye like being unclouded and him having the pictures of him and his brother and seeing it all and then finally remembering his brother and knowing what he looks like that part was all so well done and I loved it, and him just crying. And I like Raiden kind of goes up to the para-raid equipment to talk to, we get that little perspective back where he says, don't listen anymore, right? And Lena's like, yeah, you're right. We don't need to listen to this. I like it. I feel like he's going to leave the handkerchief behind now that it's off of him. I feel like he's going to show off his neck and leave the handkerchief behind because he doesn't have to hide it anymore. But the fact that that was just 12 minutes, the fact that the whole thing just ended in 12 minutes and that was it. That was the whole thing. That's all. It does feel like it was very quick. I don't know. I can't complain because the visuals and everything are really, really well done. But it did feel at the end like, I don't know. It did feel at the end like it just happened so quickly. I wanted more time with it, but I guess I can't complain because all the beats were hit. It happened so suddenly, and I don't like it in that sense. But it's fine. I can't complain. It does its job. It hits the beats it needs to. It clearly has more story to tell. The thing that's interesting is in the aftermath, we see that they still have the little para-raid things on this side, but we only see everyone's side of the face with this showing, the little device like the microphone. We don't see the other side that shows the clip in their ear. We don't see that anymore. So I don't know what that means, if they've taken it out or if just Sheen left it in. I don't know. But he looks back and yeah, he doesn't have the handkerchief anymore. And so he smiles at all of them, and then they're all, like, this episode's called Goodbye, which seems like, goodbye, we're all gonna die, but instead it's goodbye, we're going to the other side. See you then. So, we cut back to Lena when she doesn't want to hear anymore, and we find out Annette. I love Lena coming back afterwards. Lena's like, you know what? Screw it. Everybody says they're not going to help me. They don't want me around. Fine. I'm going to be as annoying as possible and just barge my way into your life and give you no choice. And I'm glad that Lena connected the dots that it was Sheen. And she may not have even known for sure. She may have been like 80% sure it was going to take a chance. She's like, well, if I go back to Annette and mention that it's Sheen and she remembers the name, then I know I got her right in my palm of my hand. But if she doesn't know it's Sheen, then, well, I tried. At this point, she doesn't want me around, so I've tried my best. I don't know what else to do except try this strategy. And I'm glad she does. Like, go Lena. That's really great. And plus, it signifies the importance of Lena learning their names, because knowing their names allowed her to be able to use that against Annette, who remembered his name back then. Whereas they're made to forget that they're even human, so they don't know their real names to connect to them, because this isn't something that's been happening for hundreds of years. It's just recent enough that a lot of people would still have grown up with some of these members of the 86. They would know their names, they would remember it, have that connection, have that bond, and that's exactly what happens here with Annette and Sheen. And Lena's like, well, you've basically rooted him out twice. You're going to do it a third time, or are you going to help me save him? And Annette ends up helping her. Now, as to what's going to happen after this with it, I don't know. And I love Annette calling her the devil. And she's like, yeah, I am the devil, but so are you. So what of it? Like, are we going to save these people or not? What do we have to lose? We're awful people anyway, so who cares what we do at this point? I love Lena. I love her so much. I'm so glad she gets agency in this episode. I'm so glad she gets a voice. All of that. And I love her putting together. So we have the unknown where they're at, right? The unknown. And they're like, so Sheen can talk now. And he's like, so I thought you were there. Was that the case? And she's like, yes, I'm the handler. And he's like, thank you, handler one. What's interesting is he doesn't call her Lena. Like we've seen like Melise and say Major Melise and everything. Raiden said that to her this episode, but they don't call her Lena, which is interesting that Sheen, and I feel like at that point, it's a sign that Sheen knew they were going to leave her behind, and he didn't want to create that connection with her because he didn't want to feel bad when they left her. And so he just says handler one. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what happened? You're a bad girl. And she's like, what? I just, was just trying to help. And they just kind of joke about it with her. And I love her pushing the 4 little images together. And he's like, I was finally able to let my brother rest. And he's like, you figured it out, right? And she's like, it was just a coincidence. It all worked out. I mean, yeah, you could say it was very convenient that they all ended up living and got to get Ray out of the picture and let him like rest in peace. I guess I'm torn about it because on the one hand, I feel like it was so rushed this episode and just happens. But then on the other hand, I'm kind of glad they didn't draw it out because that would have just made it more despairing. So I'm very torn about this series and how I feel about it and some of the pacing decisions it makes. But what can we do? And so, yeah, they had the access code and everything, the artillery control system. She just activated it. Yeah. She just went above protocol. Now, how she's going to have to deal with the ramifications of this, I don't know. I'm wondering if her uncle's going to get mad at her next episode and she's going to be like, so tell me what else has been going on. Who else has been going off grid that we don't know about? And she's like, well, half the rounds were dead, so I got this idea. And they're like, oh, that's pretty clever. Ha, ha, ha. And she's like, well, I'll do better next time. And they're like, well, glad to hear it. I'll set my expectations low. And they're like, now then. And they're like, yeah. You got the containers piled up again. And they're like, so Gunslinger, Undertaker, Laughing Fox, Snow Witch, and Werewolf. Yep, they got them piled up again. And Lena's like, wait, what are we doing? It's like, we'll decide on a place to sleep and then worry about the repairs. So yeah, now it all makes sense because when he was like, oh, I'm giving you guys all the extra parts and everything, you know how to make the repairs yourself, right? So they intended from the start to get past the base and get to the unknown. They just didn't know if it was going to happen or not. They're like, well, if we don't, this will be where we die. But if we do, it's like trying to plan for everything and being like, we'll get to a place to sleep and then do all the repairs so we can get to the other side. It's not good we use so much ammo on the first day. So they anticipate they're going to have to like work through the Legion to get to the other side and make it successfully where they need to go to. But I feel like until they weren't going to be ready for the recon mission until they found Ray and his voice to let... That's why it feels so weird. I guess here's my thing. It feels awfully convenient that they were never put to the recon base until Sheen happened to hear Ray there, right? Does that not feel slightly convenient that Sheen has been looking for Ray for 5 years and Lena just happens to get hired on board as the captain when he just happens to hear Ray's voice, when they just happen to be at the recon base, just in time for them to get assigned there to die, but they are trying to go over to the other unknown base. It just, I don't know. It doesn't feel, it feels more like the author being like, okay, now I have to get to this point, now I have to get to that point, and now I have to do this. It doesn't feel as organic, I guess, in comparison to other stories I've read, but it's fine. It just seems awfully convenient that you just happened to find your brother and now you guys can move on. It just, I don't know. It's hard to describe. I'm not mad at it. It's okay. He's like, I don't think it's a problem. We took out enough of them. Sure did. Like, thanks, Lena. Let's get to work then. I like they're like, thanks, Lena, for helping. Now we're going to leave you. Bye. Talk to you later, Major. Hope we can do this with the next ones too. Yeah. Is it safe to go forward? So here's the funny thing is that they're like, now we're leaving to go up here to the unknown. Hope you can take the next Squadron 1 and help them get to the unknown. So are you going to be our Harriet Tubman? Are you going to help the other groups get past the Underground Railroad and get to the other side? That's kind of the situation they put her in. They've kind of been like, here you go. Here's how you can help. Okay, bye. And the problem is she's developed an attachment to this specific group and they're all leaving her now. So it does feel really sad in a way because it's like, on the one hand, you're like, she has such an attachment to them. It's like she wanted them to serve out their term and be able to come back into the Republic with her and for her and them to be together. But they've already established back, a few episodes ago in episode 7, they were like, that's not going to happen. They're never going to let us become part of the Republic again. We're either going to die or we're going to escape. So now you have to let us go because we've escaped now. So we can't be together. It's basically establishing, they're like, thanks, Lena. Thanks, Major. We appreciate it, but we will never be with you. So the most you can do if you want to help us is help others get to the other side as well. And they just leave her, which is so sad because she didn't, she cares so much about them. And I don't think they realize how much she cares about them. And they're like, okay, bye. It might be, yeah. And they're like, well, she's created this minefield now, so we're going to find another route. And she's just like, what? And she's like, you didn't see anything with you. And she's like, oh, please wait, don't leave me behind. And then they just ignore her after that. We're going on our own as far as we can go. And she's like, and then they just keep talking without her. And they're just talking. The sad thing is they just ignore her at that point. They just talk about all the stuff they're going to do, like sleeping and doing repairs and making dinner. And Annette, as she walks by, I think Annette, the question is, does Annette know what's going on? Does she know what's happening? And then, yeah, of course she leaves the hat behind. Like, we've had so many examples of her wanting to leave San Magnolia behind. And she's literally wanting to run with them to run off. And then, yeah, she just, like, do you see a building, a cathedral? I've only seen castles from afar in other combat districts. I've never been in one. It's beautiful. And then they're, like, talking about the spider lilies that they're walking through to get there. The minute we become free, we got to see something wonderful, right? And there's, on the one hand, you feel so good for them because they made it past the Legion. They've made it past the Republic's control of them. They are free. They don't have to be held back by the Republic anymore because the Republic's not able to contain them that we know of. But on the other hand, it's like Lena was finally able to help them and do something. And now they've left her. It's like, it sucks. You're like, no. It's like you want to be selfish and be like, you want them to stay together, but you know that's not possible. And it hurts. I'm like, show, why did you make me feel really good and then immediately make me feel bad? We're against the Republic's control area. Just at the barrier of District 86. Yeah. We finally made it here. We finally arrived. Outside District 86, the battlefield where we lived. Yeah. And it's like, again, the base closest to heaven. Now that has another meaning layered on top of it. It's not only the closest to heaven as in they could die there, but it's closest to heaven as they're free. They've made it past the border and past the control of the Republic. They can go now, and it's okay. And that's what they've wanted to do this whole time. It was just getting to the right moment. And her just sitting there crying. And they're like, Major, we're going on ahead, Major. And then that's it. That's the end of it. And the 5 birds flying, and they all leave. The problem is now, I'm like, are we going to find out what they're thinking? Are we going to get anything with them at this point? Or is it all going to be from her perspective until halfway through the series? Because, yeah, now we see them flying past the control towers, the birds, and past the spider lilies. And we don't know what's going to happen next. So, that's so frustrating! This series is so frustrating! How dare! How dare! Ugh! I feel like they're not going to show us the other side of what Sheen and them have saw, yet they're going to make us wait so long to see them again. We're going to have to wait so long to see them again, and next episode is just going to be about Lena, but I could be completely wrong. They may do a complete 180 and show us the other side next episode. I don't know. I'm just, the show makes my stomach get in knots because you feel like somewhat satisfied, but then you're like, was it earned? But then you're like, okay, well, who cares if it was earned because that's what I wanted to see. But then it's like, it gives you this new twist. And you're like, but wait, what about the unknown? Why wasn't this brought up before? I don't know. I don't know what else to say. This is one of those episodes where you're like, well, you got what you wanted. They got to let Rey rest in peace. It happened very quickly. And now we have this twist like you wanted. They're leaving and they're out off the grid. But then you're like, but now Lena doesn't have them. And she finally connected with them. And it felt like Raiden and them were all connected with her. And now it's over. And you're like, what? Anyway, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. For the love of all things good, please no spoilers, hints, or clues. I know there may be not much to talk about this episode because of that, but I'm probably not going to be able to wait anymore for the new episodes, whether I wait on comments or not. I will probably just get to the comments when I can, but I may have to end up watching ahead because I don't know if I can wait, so... In any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. And we'll start 2024. Next week for Patreon, we'll end 2023. And we'll start 2024 with more 86. Bye.